let's see, the best thing that happened this week was the Democrats pulling off a shocking midterm wins in decades. Now, back in 1962, the then President John F. Kennedy and the Democratic Party took advantage of the low inflation and exceptional real income growth to add 3 seats to their Senate majority. Now, 60 years later, no Democratic president with control of the Senate has ever duplicated the achievement by picking up Senate seats or even holding steady in the midterm election until now, and in this economy, no less. The current President Joe Biden and the Democrats have defied a gloomy narrative to give themselves a real shot at retaining control of the Senate, but we still don't know the full results from Arizona, which is leaning Democratic, or Nevada and Georgia, which those two appear to be toss-ups. They also seem poised to lose a relatively small number of seats in the House, but yet Biden's record looks almost nothing like JFK's back in 1962. Now, Biden does have one of the lowest approval ratings of any post-war president after 22 months. The global inflation is more than 8%. Real income growth, which is a surprisingly good record of predicting the incumbent party's vote share, in each election has turned sharply negative. Now, perhaps this is why pundits and commentators seem so certain over the past few weeks that Democrats face electoral calamity on Election Day. Politico and the New York Times anticipated disaster for the Democrats. Joe Rogan predicted a red wave, which never happened. A conservative pundit such as Ari Fleischer predicted a similar thing, but that didn't happen either. Now, part of the overall prediction is that Democrats will wake up on Wednesday morning with a powerful impulse to move to Canada or Belgium to take advantage of their permissive assisted suicide program. This is what Brett Stevens from the New York Times had wrote. The betting markets agreed with this overall assessment, predicting that Republicans would finish the night with 51 to 53 Senate seats. Now the vibes were wrong. The Democratic horror movie never rolled. The disaster never materialized, and many Democrats woke up this morning with a powerful impulse to retain their citizenship for at least for for at least one more election cycle. Americans are experiencing an unfamiliar sensation, the feeling that the polls were right, or at least right enough in aggregate. Now, particularly, the reputable institutional pollsters such as the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal had provided high-quality indicators of the final outcome. The website 538's final polling average gave more weight to the blue-chip pollsters, and they predicted a 50-50 toss-up for the Senate. Now, in the end, the 538 average in most key races are looking pretty solid. This is what Kristen Anderson, a Republican pollster, had wrote. I think a lot of people who watch politics closely were mentally giving Republicans a few shy Trump voter bonus points, and that's why they were surprised. The polls seemed especially good and relative to more subjective forecasts, not in the betting market predicate, which offers a nice quantitative measure of pre-election vibes. Mehmet Oz was favored to defeat John Fetterman, but that went the other way around. Fetterman beat Oz. But the polls receiving a rating from 538 included one from Siena College, and the New York Times and the Foe sponsored one from Beacon Research, consistently predicted a narrow Fetterman win. Indeed, Fetterman won, but narrowly, to say the least. But in New Hampshire, predicted gave the Republican Senate challenger a 45% chance to win earlier this month and this week. Indeed, the Democrat Maggie Hassan had won comfortably, as traditional polls had predicted. Now, every election has polling errors, and usually when the final vote is counted, you will likely see some state contests where the polls were off by double digits, but those errors don't always appear to show a systemic bias against one party. Now, the same way that the 2016 and 2020 elections undercounted the Trump vote, instead the polls properly weighted, they seem to have offered a pretty good indicator of that final result. Now, one lesson that we've learned from the 2022 midterms is that the polling industry is not essentially screwed. High-quality polling still exists, even though it is hard to do in an age of cell phones, caller ID, and low response rates. it means that the direction of polling errors is still random enough that people shouldn't automatically subtract several points from every Democratic vote share figure that they read. Now, another lesson is that the Republicans seem to have given more weight to vibes than polls throughout the year. Now, here are several things that poll terribly: Donald Trump, the failed Klan insurrection on January 6th, the explicit plans to reject the Democratic elections, overturning Roe v. Wade, and banning abortions. To believe that one's party can win a landslide election while embracing all five, one must at some level believe that unquantified bad vibes are worth more than quantifiable polling. The fact that President Biden seems so close to holding the Senate out to shock us, but when Republicans embrace unpopularity and come up short of popularity contests, one cannot call it surprising. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube, and for just a little as $3 a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.